World War II left Europe in a state of economic despair. As cities lay in ruins and industries crumbled, nations faced the daunting task of rebuilding not only their economies, but also the trust between them. The devastation of war exposed the vulnerabilities of individual nations, highlighting the need for cooperation and solidarity. In the wake of this turmoil, visionary leaders recognized that to prevent future conflicts and foster economic stability, a new approach was essential. Thus, in 1951, the European Coal and Steel Community was born, making the first steps toward unification and collaboration. This fledgling allegiance aimed to integrate the economies of member states, ensuring that resources were shared and industries flourished collectively. As the years progressed, this concept evolved into the European Economic Community and eventually the modern-day European Union. Today, the European Union stands as a testament to the power of unity in the face of diversity. Its frameworks, like the single market and shared currency, have transformed member states, providing unparalleled economic benefits and opportunities. Hi, I'm Enzo, and today we'll be looking into how each of the European Union's member states' economy benefited from joining the single market as opposed to remaining independent. Consider the context. Europe in the 1950s was a continent of wounded nations. The UK, France, West Germany, Italy, Belgium, and the Netherlands were all still recovering from the most devastating conflict in human history. Traditional nationalism had proven catastrophically destructive. The ECC offered an alternative narrative, that prosperity could be a collective achievement. The European Coal and Steel Community's success led to the signing of the Treaty of Rome in 1957, establishing the European Economic Community, or ECC. The ECC was broader in scope than the Coal and Steel Community by implementing a customs union, eliminating tariffs between member states, and creating a common external tariffs, which all sought to develop common economic policies in agriculture and transportation. By the 1960s, the results were already evident. Industrial production in founding members increased by 58% between 1958 and 1967. Trade between member states quadrupled during this period, far outpacing global trade growth. The 1970s brought the first expansion, with the UK, Ireland, and Denmark joining in 1973. Despite global economic challenges like the oil crisis raising prices significantly, the ECC members showed remarkable resilience compared to non-member European states. The 1980s saw the development of the Single European Act, creating what we now know as the single market. This revolutionary concept established the four fundamental freedoms: the free movement of goods, services, capital, and people. Imagine a young entrepreneur in Dublin who could now seamlessly offer services in Barcelona, or a researcher in Munich collaborating with colleagues in Milan without navigating complex bureaucratic labyrinths. The single market created an ecosystem of opportunity that defeated national limitations. Let's look at the numbers. In the first 5 years after the single market's creation, EU's GDP grew by an additional 1.7% solely due to market integration. Employment increased by 2.75 million jobs. For smaller economies like Ireland, this wasn't just growth, it was practically transformation. The rise from 61% to 125% of the EU average GDP per capita wasn't just about numbers. It represented a complete restructuring of economic potential, where geographical and historical constraints could be overcome through collaborative frameworks. The Maastricht Treaty was signed on February 7, 1992, which established the European Union and finally created a more comprehensive political framework, going way beyond the economic focus of the ECC. It also integrated a common foreign policy, created the concept of EU citizenship, created justice departments for international cooperation, and most importantly, laid the groundwork for the creation of the euro, which would replace national currencies in the future. The introduction of the euro in 1999 marked another watershed moment in European economic integration. Initially adopted by 11 countries, the single currency eliminated exchange rate risks and transaction costs that had previously plagued cross-border trade. The numbers tell a compelling story. Transaction costs in the pre-euro era consumed approximately about 0.3 to 0.4% of EU GDP annually, equivalent to about 20 to 25 billion euros. By 2022, intra-EU trade had grown to represent 60% of the member states' total trade compared to just 35% back in the 1990s. The elimination of exchange rate risk wasn't just an economic convenience, it represented a fundamental trust, a commitment that European economies were now fundamentally interconnected. For smaller countries like Estonia or Slovakia, the euro wasn't just a currency, but a shield against economic volatility. By later on becoming the second most used currency in international trade, the euro challenged the global economic order and how business is done routinely. Today's EU member states enjoy economic advantages that would be unattainable as an independent market. Let's examine three key areas. First, collective bargaining power. When negotiating trade deals, the EU's 15 trillion euro economy carries significant more weight than any individual European nation. The recent EU-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement, for instance, has opened a market of 127 million customers to EU businesses. Second, crisis resilience. During the 2008 financial crisis, EU countries recovered faster than non-EU European nations. The COVID-19 pandemic provided another example, with the EU's €750 billion recovery fund providing crucial support to member states. Third, innovation and development. EU programs like Horizon Europe, with its €95.5 billion budget, have made the bloc a global leader in research and development. Brexit provides a unique opportunity to examine what happens when a country leaves the single market. The UK's departure has served as a real-world experiment in economic de-integration. The impact has been substantial. UK trade intensity has fallen by 8% since 2019, while EU members have seen continued growth. The Office for Budget Responsibility estimates Brexit will reduce UK GDP by 4% over the long term. Labour shortages in the UK have also intensified, with sectors previously reliant on EU workers struggling to fill positions. Meanwhile, new trade barriers have cost UK businesses an estimated £7 billion annually in additional paperwork. Particularly telling is the comparison with similar economies that remained in the EU. While France's GDP has grown 8.3% above pre-pandemic levels, the UK lagged behind at 2.1%. The evidence is clear. EU membership provides substantial economic advantages over independence. From the early days of the coal and steel community to today's sophisticated single market, the EU has consistently delivered stronger growth, better crisis resilience, and greater opportunities for its members. This explains why countries like Norway and Switzerland, while technically outside the EU, still pay to access the single market and follow many EU regulations. The European Union remains an unfinished project, a continuous negotiation between national identities and their collective potential. Its strength lies not in its uniformity, but its inability to create unity through diversity. As global challenges like climate change and digital transformation emerge, the EU's collaborative model becomes even more critical. It offers a blueprint for how nations can maintain their unique identities while creating something greater than themselves. As we look to the future, the EU's economic framework continues to evolve, addressing new challenges like digital transformation and climate change. As we look to the future, the lesson of 70 years of European integration remains relevant. In an interconnected world, prosperity comes through cooperation, not isolation.